yeah, combination of, I came right here from the gym and also, yeah, and hot flashes.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
So yeah, it'll be, I'll be back to wanting my jacket in a little bit. But also we're gonna be making a nice, yummy, warming blend here. So that'll offset, and the sun is coming in.
Yeah,
Look at this, you lovelies. It is. Morning, folks. Online. I've got you down here because we're going to be doing a lot of work on the stove today. So you got a stovetop view. We are going to be working today. This is kind of we've been kind of hitting a theme lately of just eat the, what did you do to your hand?
it was
Sorry.
my dog and a squirrel.
And
It was a bad angle combination.
I'm so sorry.
I know. He's a big dog. He's 150 pounds. So
I would imagine,
Just
because
bad.
if my dog went after a squirrel on a leash, he would be 30 pounds of weight.
Yes.
Oh.
So I'm hoping you have more bone set tincture in there.
We have lots of bone set tincture and lots of other things.
I ran out.
Wow. Hi, Abahita, hi. Hey, Khan. So we are, we're looking at ingestion of things rather than extraction. But here we're going to kind of be doing both. And so I want to look at a really common recipe that's out right now as the seasons are turning, as it's getting colder. Golden milk is a blend that people are using a lot, and there's a lot of recipes online for how to make golden milk, and most of them miss the boat in a couple of really important areas. So we're going to look at extraction of difficult constituents and how to modify those, and a different medium, and then playing with anhydrous media. Anhydrous means without water. So what happens when we have a formula that doesn't have water in it, right? This is important because the medium that we're looking at, the carrying agent here, is going to be fat. Right? So the first thing we want to think about is what kind of fat we're going to be using. So there's tradition, which is ghee. Ghee is a clarified heated butter. Butter is a great source of fatty acids if it is grass-fed. One of the really important things to know about fatty acid chemistry, particularly when it comes from animals, when the fat is coming from the animals, it's important to recognize that the fatty acid chemistry in the fat from that animal is diet-specific, not species-specific, right? And so those fats are coming from the animal's diet. If those fatty acids are not found in the diet, they're not going to be in the fat from the animal. Just because you have butter from a cow doesn't mean that butter is going to have a high amount of butyric acid in it, for example. Butyric acid is a short-chain fatty acid that fuels gut mucosa. It feeds the cells. The cells of the gastrointestinal tract are epithelial tissue, and epithelial tissue by its nature replicates very quickly. It's a thing about epithelial tissue. Any kind of skin is going to replicate itself very, very, very rapidly. And so that requires a lot of energy. If you have a gut that has chronic inflammation, reactivity is already kind of a challenge, and you're asking even more from it, it's nice to give it some fuel to do the work. And butyric acid from butter is one of those fuels that helps to feed and nourish and give those gut cells the tools that they need to fuel their energy. But the butter is only going to have a significant amount of butyric acid in it if the butter comes from grass-fed animals, right? It's not going to, if it's coming from cows that are fed Purina cow chow, then it's not going to have a lot, because the corn and soy that makes up the large part of any kind of dry chow type things that are feedlot foods don't have omega-3 fatty acids in them. They don't have EPA and DHA, and so it's not going to be present in the, and it doesn't have butyric acid, and that's not going to be present in the butter that comes from the cow. The fats that come from the cow also are not going to have any of those fatty acids. And so it also makes a difference if you're using another type of fat, which is tallow. So tallow is fat from a cow. Lard is fat from a pig. All right, so tallow and lard are two other animal fats that you can use as media. So you can use ghee or butter. To go back a little bit, so butter can be clarified and should be for a recipe like this. You need the butter to be clarified because butter, just as you buy it, is about 15% water. It also has some proteins and it has some sugars. And that combination of water and protein and sugar means that you have a product that will decay, that's going to go bad. Right? Because water always initiates breakdown of stuff, and water and protein and water and starch are just perfect media for stuff to go off, and also for oxidation, which causes the oils to go bad more rapidly. So when we clarify the butter, either by when we heat it and not only remove the solids, right? When you heat butter, those solids fall down to the bottom. That's a combination of the sugars and the proteins that are in the butter. So that's going to fall to the bottom. You still want to cook the butter for a little while because you do have that 15% water content in the butter. So you want to continue to cook it for a little bit. It'll foam, and the foam kind of shows the presence of water in the butter. You continue to cook it until the foam subsides, and that will generally tell you you've mostly cooked off all of that water. And now what you have is ghee. Before that is clarified butter. So it is the butter solids. It's the butter fat with the solids taken out and with the water taken out. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. The difference between ghee and butter.
Right.
Is that the fats and solids are taken out.
That's exactly
But
right.
it's the same product.
It's the same product, yeah. And so it's gonna make a difference what quality butter you start with.
Okay.
That makes a difference in the quality of the ghee that you end with.
And that comes from
But
cow's
yeah,
milk.
comes from cow's milk. Yeah. You can probably make it from other animal milks. I only know. I only use it from cow's milk. I've only made it from cow's milk.
Fat and goat's milk.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can
Yeah.
make it from there.
Yak's milk is supposed to be extremely rich in fat. I'm sorry, folks, you're all chatting in here and I am ignoring you. Sorry. Hi. Fat and meat have specific amino acids and nutrients that can't be found in plant matter. Oh, absolutely. And that's another thing. Thank you so much. Who is that? Madman in my visions. Yes, not only the amino acids are in the proteins, the fatty acids are in the fats. And there's also unique fatty acids that are found in animal fats that are not found in plant fats. It's a really important distinction. One of those is EPA and DHA, the omega-3 fatty acids. You're going to have the omega-3 fats in plants are as alpha-linolenic acid, and that has to be converted into EPA and DHA. Those are the end-use omega-3 fats, and they're not found in any of the plant fats because plant-sourced omega-3s are alpha-linolenic acid. And you're also likely going to have a higher amount of omega-6 fats in plant fats. You're going to have a higher amount of linolenic acid, which is really problematic. One of the reasons why we want to limit a lot of these seed and grain fats. Yeah, really good point about that. So that's why I wanted to preface the class with my preference in fats is going to be the butter, particularly with the butyric acid in there, but also tallow is very good to consider if you want to play with that. Can you get butyric acid from plants? No, you can't. You can probably get a synthesized butyric acid supplement that might be available. I could see that it could be made from bacterial fermentation, which is how a lot of compounds are made, are via bacterial fermentation. Like B vitamins are made that way, and some amino acids are made that way. But as far as I know, butyric acid comes from butters from the animal fats that move through mammary glands. Hey, The compound avail also in other dairy products like goat's butter or cheeses. That's a great question, Abahita, and I don't know. It's a great question. Um, um, yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. I would imagine so, but I don't know. All right, so so those are great sources. The other issue to keep in mind, however, is that some people don't eat animals. And so animal fats might be really, really beneficial for us, but if people don't eat those, then they're not an option for you. So a lot of times people are going to use plant-sourced fats. And so the primary one that is used is coconut oil, because it is a saturated fat, and so it's more stable. It's not going to go rancid. And this is really important because we are using this fat as a base for our product, primarily because we're going to be heating it, because we need to change the solubility of the curcuminoids in the turmeric, and in order to do that, we need a combination of heat and fat. Right, so we need a fat as a medium. The first question is going to be what kind of fat. For our purposes here, I think probably coconut oil is probably best. Is that for everyone here? Is that a good option for you? Okay. Is anyone opposed to ghee? No? So we could also do a combination of ghee and coconut oil, right? Nice thing is when you're making recipes, you can do whatever you want. Doesn't always mean it's going to end up optimal, but you can do whatever you want. Here, this actually is a nice compromise. I don't have a whole lot of ghee, so I want to be able to have y'all go home with some of the paste. But if we use some ghee, so we're getting some of those compounds.
But you were saying you could use butter too.
You can use butter, but you have to clarify the butter.
Oh,
you have to remove that water. No, you have to remove that water, and you have to remove those proteins and the sugars, because those make it unstable. And we're trying to make a shelf-stable product here.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can clarify the butter just by heating it and continue to heat it as it foams, and when it finishes foaming, you have.
But if you were just making it fresh for yourself, just 1 cup.
Yeah,
You could
yeah.
use
If you're
butter.
making what I'm making, the kind of the concept that I'm making here is a stable paste for long-term storage. But absolutely, if you're just making it for yourself in the pan as you go, yeah, just use butter, whatever you want. Use any kind of fat. The butter, the coconut, the solid fats here primarily are here because we are going to be heating it kind of for a longer period of time, and then we're expecting it to be shelf stable. And if we're applying heat and time to an oil, that oil needs to be really, really stable. And a lot of the plant, this is another thing about the plant oils, is that most of them are very unstable, particularly when it comes to exposure to heat and time and oxygen. You're going to have rancidity there. If it's not there already, it's going to come really soon. So these oils that we're choosing are more shelf stable. All right. Used to make tikka masala, chicken with naan bread, with ghee. Oh, dang. That sounds so good. That sounds delicious. I'm not even hungry, and now I want chicken. All right, so we're melting our fats here. I did not measure how much was in there. It was that amount. Because this is one of those recipes this is one of those soup recipes that you just throw it all in. It will be fine. There's some primary concepts that we're looking at. How you execute them is widely variable, and it'll all be perfectly okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the base here, and then I'm going to let y'all take it and then modify it so you can kind of see variations on this theme. And then you folks at home can kind of do this because it's a super simple recipe. You'll have the concept and you can just kind of go to town with the ingredients that you have available. So I'm melting our fat, whatever fat we are choosing. Again, we're getting a shelf-stable solid fat for this. And we are going to add our turmeric to this. Now, the reason that we're doing this, some of the primary constituents in turmeric are the curcuminoids, right? Curcuminoids, the suffix is, there's a whole bunch of curcumin-based compounds. So curcuminoids are said to be the primary therapeutic constituents in turmeric. That being said, there are studies on turmeric extracts where curcumins have been removed and then the turmeric has been used and it is therapeutically active. So it's important to remember that whenever we've identified a single constituent or class of constituents, it's likely not the whole story about the plant. Plant chemistry is extremely complex, and it's generally much more complex than a single category of constituents. And that's one of the reasons why I really love this recipe, because we are using whole turmeric. We're using just the powdered turmeric, which is just the ground whole turmeric. And so we are relying on that wide range of chemistry. A lot of the turmeric products that you see on the market are standardized extracts, standardized for turmeric content. So you'll see on the label, it'll say 1,000 milligrams standardized for 98% curcumin. And what that means is that they've extracted and concentrated that curcumin to a level where they could guarantee that that concentrated powder had a standard level of activity. And now you can package it up and you can guarantee again that level. What you miss when you have a standardized compound is all of the other plant chemistry that was there that you weren't paying attention to because your focus was on this single constituent. So rather than doing that in this formula, we are going to, and one of the reasons that they're doing that is because curcuminoids are notoriously difficult to absorb and retain in the body. The body really wants to dump them out. And so our job is to try to get them into the system and try to stop the liver from getting them, putting them out, allow those curcuminoids and other related compounds to do their work. I see this discussion going on. Philippines, oh yes, oh. I imagine you'd have to use powder and not fresh. Yes, for this recipe to go, that great point is that we are using powders for this recipe because we are trying to make a shelf-stable product, and with the fresh plant, we would have water coming in. That is exactly right, and you get 10 points for pointing that out because that's a very, very good point. All right, so we have this melted solid fat, and we are going to throw our whole turmeric in there. And so what we're doing by adding the turmeric to the fat is those curcuminoids are very fat soluble. They are very non-polar in their nature. So they don't extract into water. This is a really, really important aspect of this. A lot of the recipes for golden milk paste type things that you see on the market on YouTube, they're going to have you mixing the turmeric powder with water. And that's fine, it'll make a paste, but that paste won't be activated, it won't be enhanced as an extraction because curcuminoids don't like water. It's not a solvent that they recognize that they're able to be extracted into. And even with oil, which they like more, alcohol they like more, these are non-polar solvents, even the oil, it really needs a combination of fat and heat. Fat and heat combined unlocks curcuminoids from turmeric and really helps to extract it and bring it into solution, into this medium, this fat that we're using. So we're going to add the turmeric powder to the fat. And this is kind of like making roux, if you've ever made roux, adding flour to butter and heating it up and cooking it. We do that because we're trying to separate the starch molecules by fat. We're coating all of the starch granules with fat, and that kind of keeps them all separate so that when you go in to make a dish out of the roux, you add water, and that kind of goes in, and you can have everything mixing and not clumping up. Here, that's not the reason why we're making this paste. We are doing it again for kind of extraction and potentiation of that curcumin. So we don't have to, we're not toasting it, but we are heating it for a pretty good amount of time because curcumin is finicky. It doesn't want to extract. We need to encourage it to extract. Marcos is here. Hey, welcome. Okay. Yes, I know golden milk is so good. Hi, Sandra. Yes, golden milk is so yummy. Hold on, Ren is here too. Yes. Oh, so Ren, you also get points because you brought up the issue of black pepper. So this is the one thing when people talk about enhancing solubility of curcuminoids, that's what they think about is the black pepper, because absolutely, yes. We also want to add in black pepper. So black pepper contains a compound called piperine. Piperine ends in INE, so we know that it's likely an alkaloid, right? This is an alkaloid that comes from black pepper. Black pepper, the genus is Piper nigrum. So this is the alkaloid that comes from the Piper genus, piperine, right? So this is what makes black pepper pungent. It's one of the compounds that makes black pepper pungent. And it really enhances the extraction of the curcuminoids, and it also limits the liver's ejection of their curcuminoids. Remember that is one of the other issues with curcuminoids. It's not only getting them into the body, it's keeping them into the body. And so the piperine in the black pepper does both of those. It enhances absorption and it also enhances retention. It reduces the tendency of the liver to dump it a little bit too quickly. So we've got a couple of different ways now that we're increasing this extraction. So we've simmered this for a pretty good amount of time. This has been over the heat, and I've given it, it's been about 4 or 5 minutes now. I would almost never put this amount of heat onto an oil. I tend to be really, 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 really picky when it comes to application of heat to oils, as y'all can probably imagine from the way that I go on about it. But when you're using oils like this, when you're using oils like ghee and tallow and coconut oil, they're used to a lot of heat. They are saturated fats. Saturated fats are made to be stable in conditions of heat. They come from tropical plants, often which are plants that have evolved in warm climates. They know how to deal with heat. Yes, piperine, yes. And so quite often you'll see piperine in supplements these days, right? In supplements. Look on the back. It's amazing how often they'll put a little bit of piperine. There's a branded product called Bioperine that you'll often see. And they'll put just like 5 milligrams of piperine in there because it enhances absorption of the nutrients. It's a wise thing to do, and you can also do that with your pepper. So we're gonna add a little bit of pepper in there. Is everyone here okay with me adding pepper into the base? Yeah, no one just really hates pepper. Okay, you don't need to add a lot. Again, that 5 milligrams is the amount used in a lot of products. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit. Oh, y'all, thank you. All right, so that's our base. That's done. That's the class. Is just put your turmeric into fat and cook it a little bit and throw some whatever we just threw in there. Just throw in there. Black pepper. Throw some black pepper. But if you're gonna make a product like that, you might as well have fun with it, right? So that's your base. Now you can take this. This you should always make this and keep it. This can then be put into a jar, and now it's a shelf-stable, activated, enhanced absorption turmeric. You can take this once it cools down, it's going to go back to being a solid. If you don't like the taste of turmeric, you can take that solid fat and roll it into little balls and treat it like a tablet, treat it like a pill. Put it on your tongue and drink it with a glass of water and just wash it down. You don't have to taste the turmeric, and people don't like that. Keep it refrigerated so it'll be a little bit more solid. But yeah, just take a little piece of it and swallow it that way. But you can also just take this and throw it into soups or on your veggies or slather it on bread or whatever you want to add some turmeric to. You can take a spoonful of this paste and just throw it in there. You don't have to do anything to activate it, to increase the flavor. It's already been toasted, so the flavor is there, but also the therapeutic activity is there. You can use this topically. Turmeric is very, very good for healing wounds, for reducing inflammation. It will dye you a beautiful golden yellow color, so you have to be kind of okay with that, but it's really, really beneficial used topically. And depending on the fats that you're using, I wouldn't necessarily want to use a coconut oil based one topically all the time, because coconut oils tend to be a little bit more drying, but with the ghee in there, that makes it really, really nice, right? So, but you can also add other powders to this. So I've got a couple of different options for powders to throw in there that we are going to we're going to allow you folks to throw in, and just some ideas for you to think about at home. The pepper, if you grind it fresh, by the way, that the piperine content is going to be significantly higher. It does degrade, so you do want to grind your pepper quickly. Golden fingers when making fresh tinctures. Oh, right. Yeah. You can always tell when people have been working with turmeric because they're golden. So you can have just the plain formula, but you can also add things to it. So let's look at what you can add to it. In terms of herbs, your basic things, you can throw cinnamon powder in there. If you're making a golden milk formula, then throwing cinnamon and ginger powder in there, you're going to have your turmeric, cinnamon, ginger. If you want to throw some nutmeg or cardamom or star anise or whatever other powders, you can do that. If you want to throw some star anise pods in there, or some larger pods, you can throw 1 or 2 in there and let it infuse while it's hot. And then that'll have the flavor of the star anise coming through, but you wouldn't have, the bits in there. You can't do that with a lot of other plants because we are relying on that powder in there. And if they're small, it's going to start getting gritty, and it's not going to have a smooth texture. So generally we want to stick with powders, but that would be one exception, would be something like star anise. It's dry, it's large, it's easy to pull it out. Yes. Oh, good morning, Trish. I'm glad you finally made it. Welcome. We were waiting for you. So those are 2 options. You can also, if you want to go a lot easier than that, if you have a powdered chai blend, this stuff is awesome. This is an instant black tea, and then it has the traditional chai spices, and it's powdered. So you can just add this to that, and you have a chai golden milk formula. So you can just take that and add it to water, to milk, whatever your milk is. And if you want a sweetener, add that sweetener in, and you have a beautiful golden milk masala chai spiced golden milk. You can add cacao powder to it. That's going to make it, cacao-y. You can also add things that are not so aromatic. So you can throw in something neutral like burdock root. Burdock root powder would be a great thing to put in there too, especially if maybe you want to modify the spiciness of the chai spices, right? You want that ginger, you want that turmeric, but maybe that's really more heating and you want to offset the energetics. We can offset energetics by throwing in some of the burdock in there. If you wanted to make it a little bit more tonifying, you could throw some ashwagandha powder in there. And all of these, even with the burdock and the ashwagandha, those are starchy things. And generally, if you're using starchy plants and you're putting it into a liquid medium, you want to be mindful of the fact that now you can have a petri dish. Are you creating a petri dish with your medicine is the question you always want to ask yourself. So I'm asking you, are we creating a petri dish right now?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
Because there's no water?
Exactly, yes. So we can throw all sorts of things that generally we wouldn't want to be putting in here. Which brings up another thing. Coconut milk powder. You can throw in coconut milk powder in here because it is an anhydrous medium. The coconut milk powder will be held by the fat in much the same way as in a roux, the flour is being held by the fat, and as soon as you throw in the water, it activates, right? If you throw in the coconut milk powder into this base, then what you're making is a real golden milk base, and as soon as you add water to it, now you're going to rehydrate that. Now you'll have your milk base, and then you'll also have your fats, and you'll have your turmeric, and you'll have your spices and all of that. So you can throw that in there. Yes, it does have proteins and starches that generally, as soon as they go into a medium, are going to start to degrade, are going to make a petri dish. But because we've got an anhydrous medium, we don't have to worry about that. We also can throw in some sweeteners. If you want to have it be completely instant, where you just take some and put it into hot water, throw a little bit of some coconut sugar in there, and it will not ferment because it's not in a hydrated medium. So all of that is just going to hold it. The fat is going to hold all of that. If you have like fancy little, I just grabbed this superfood blend formula. It's maca and reishi and ashwagandha powder. It's a powdered formula. It could be thrown in there just as some stuff that's going to be in your blend. So you can have this like superfood golden milk masala chai spiced coconut sugar sweetened coconut milk powder base. I've never been good at naming products, so that probably wouldn't be the name, but that's what it is. Oh, y'all. Yeah, isn't it a great recipe? As there's so many options. Yeah, you can just go. So you could totally add Tulsi. Yes. So consider what that would taste like. That would take it really a different direction, right? Still beautiful, very different direction. I like the way you're thinking. You could throw, yes, the eugenol in there, especially if you got the Vana Tulsi tends to have a higher eugenol content. So if you like that sort of thing, I hate the taste of eugenol. So I would go for one of the lower eugenol content times. But yeah, so many choices. That is the take-home message, Sandra. Yeah, you can just, this is a medium for carrying stuff into your body. Now, this is this extraction or is it carrying a medium? We are throwing powders into here and then making stuff with it. But, if you put hot water in it and rehydrated and made a golden milk and then let all those powders kind of go down to the bottom of your cup and then you left them there and just drank the milk, you would not be getting the whole plant because the whole plant is part of that. So I would recommend with a formula like this, if you're drinking it in that way, swirling it around so you're getting all of that particulate matter, understanding that ingesting that particulate matter whole, particularly because you've got turmeric and turmeric is so touchy about extraction, is going to enhance absorption. What do you think about putting this in coffee? I think it would be great because consider like the bulletproof coffees, right? Where you're throwing ghee in there. That's the bulletproof coffee uses the ghee or coconut, and MCT oils. Yeah, I think it would be great with coffee. I can't do coffee. I always have to throw that in there whenever coffee comes in. I always have to say, I can't do coffee. It makes me sad. Why don't you bring up mangoes too? Because I'm allergic to mangoes, so I always have to say that too whenever this goes in. Right? Yeah. Drown my sorrow in.
So question for you though. In theory, if your golden milk wasn't totally extracted, if the turmeric wasn't totally extracted, but you were ingesting the powder, your body would extract it.
And that's another reason why you want to make sure that you're ingesting all of the powder. So I'm going to repeat what you just said, just to make sure that folks heard it there. If you are ingesting the powder, then you don't have to worry quite so much about solubility of the constituents because you're ingesting the whole thing. You're letting the digestive system duke it out, right? Get that absorption in there. And that is very true, except for the fact that those curcuminoids are touchy about absorption and also retention in the body. So we still do want to modify the formula and really encourage their extraction and their retention by doing the fat and doing the black pepper. It's not enough just to ingest just the powdered turmeric by itself. Won't, even though you are ingesting the whole plant, because it's a little bit more. But once you've done this, then that is the other part of the equation is then you just eat this.
Right.
You just eat it. So if you compare the price for this, since turmeric powder is ridiculously expensive, and even if you're buying expensive tallow or ghee, ghee is not expensive if you make it yourself, or clarified butter. I mean, none of this is expensive, and you're getting a really good, high quality, incredibly high absorption. And also those other things, if you're throwing ginger and you're throwing cinnamon in there, those are also enhancing absorption because they're warming spices. They're improving digestion, right? So all of this is a really good digestive tonic. It's a good liver tonic. It's a good warming circulatory tonic. It's good for people who are kind of metabolically kind of sluggish. Right? It's a good immune tonic. This has a wide range of applications, and energetically it's relatively neutral if we're throwing in the coconut milk powder, if you're throwing in the burdock, if you're throwing in sugar, things that have more of a cooling quality to them, to offset those heating effects. Yeah? Okay, trying this tomorrow. Storage, no, that's the other thing, Tuco. It doesn't need to be kept in the refrigerator. This is shelf stable because it's all powders that were shelf stable in a fat that's shelf stable. So this can just hang out on the counter of your kitchen and just be ready for use. If you're making products, you can make them and then it's shelf stable until water gets into it. As soon as water gets in there, water is the thing that's going to start all of the metabolic processes and turn everything to sludge, right? But yeah, it's so good. I know. Yeah. It's so good. All right, so I'm going to put this, yes.
Well, the curcuminoids are one of the main therapeutic components.
Yes.
What do they do?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Are they anti-inflammatory?
Yeah, they are anti-inflammatory, absolutely. So they are part of the compounds in turmeric that are associated generally with the ability of turmeric to block inflammatory pathways. So we've talked a number of times about the way that things are anti-inflammatory, right? It's not quite so helpful just to say that something is anti-inflammatory and stop there, because it's like, well, what's the mechanism by that, right? How is it blocking inflammation? So we've talked about like things that strengthen tissues and block inflammation that way by stabilizing the tissues that are responding to it. That's not how turmeric is working. Turmeric is very specifically working on blocking inflammatory compounds that the body tends to produce as part of metabolic processes, as part of oxidative processes, as part of immune response, as just life. There's stuff that is produced. And so turmeric inhibits those pathways, reduces inflammation. Doesn't decrease it completely, because inflammation is a really important part of our immune system, right? We are here every day, we live because of inflammatory processes. It's just when inflammation goes off the rails, when it's out of balance, that it causes problems. And when it goes systemic, when we have systemic inflammation and inappropriate inflammation, which is generally a driver of so much chronic disease, right? And so using things like turmeric can be really, really, really helpful, along with reducing inflammatory compounds like bad fats, like omega-6 fats, like heated fats that are not saturated fats, like sugars, like, so many other things are pro-inflammatory. So this is anti-inflammatory, but we also need to stop bringing in the pro-inflammatory compounds as well. And we also need to stabilize tissues so they're less reactive to inflammatory processes, right? That's kind of the whole way that we're dealing with inflammation. This is one of those. And a lot of the other things in here, again, depending on how you formulate your blend, are also going to be anti-inflammatory. And actually the fats that we're using are also anti-inflammatory in a different way. Right, so it's not only anti-inflammatory. It's like yay anti-inflammatory in all of these different pathways. Right, throw in some ashwagandha in there, and now you have anti-inflammatory by regulation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, regulating that stress response and its contribution to inflammation, which is significant. Right, so yeah, there's another level. You can make awesome stuff. All right. I know, Ren says, look at your in-class students showing off their knowledge. I know. Yeah, they are. They're awesome. Yeah, no ratios. This is one of those, throw it in there and just make it, stir it up. This one looks like it could use a little bit more powder, but it is all going to solidify as it cools. Also, y'all are going to be adding stuff to it, so that'll be fine. Any other questions?
So we can't extract turmeric at all in water.
Turmeric in water doesn't extract.
All those turmeric shots.
Yeah. And fortunately, the constituents, it just doesn't like water. So anytime you see a recipe, and this is also, we talked about this with vinegar, you often see formulas like turmeric added to fire cider formulas. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. You see turmeric added to fire cider, but vinegar is just acidified water. And water doesn't extract turmeric. So acidified water still doesn't extract turmeric. You still can't extract turmeric in vinegar because it's a polar solvent, and curcuminoids are non-polar. You have to have a non-polar solvent. You have to have fat or alcohol, something like that. So every time, you'll see turmeric in a lot of different formulas, and once you think about that, think about what is the medium that they're extracting in. Is there really turmeric there? There's going to be some constituents there. You're going to see turmeric in anything is going to turn it golden. You're going to see it there. Of course, there's stuff in there. Is it a therapeutic level of that stuff? There's no way of knowing because you're using a solvent that those things don't like. So some of the really important stuff is there. But I mean, also if water is the only solvent that you have in order to get your turmeric in you, then go ahead and use the water, right? It's not going to be optimal, but it still is going to be good because you are ingesting it, because you have a system that's meant to absorb stuff. So we don't want to be absolutist and like stop people from saying, well, all I have is water, so I guess I'm not going to take my turmeric at all, right? That's not helpful, right? So thank you for bringing that up and allowing us to unpack that complexity there. Marcus, so Julie, whoopsie, hold on, I'm confused about ashwagandha as a powder. I understand that it has to be decocted to extract the constituents. Is it still beneficial in powder form? It is, because of you're going to be eating this, and so it's all going to extract in your stomach. It is a root, and so roots, generally, if we were looking at the cut and sifted form of the ashwagandha, or any kind of roots really, or most kind of roots really, if we were to eat the whole, the cut and sifted pieces, we wouldn't be able to absorb that because they're big. They're big pieces, and we can't digest those. We can't digest cellulose. We don't produce cellulase, which is the enzyme that breaks down cellulose, and cellulose is the cell wall structure compound. And so decoction, or extraction into water, is a way of pulling stuff out of that cellulose cell wall and making it available to us. And so we decoct roots like ashwagandha in order to enhance extraction of that. But another way around that is to decrease the size of the particle, right? If we decrease the size of the particle, we're increasing surface area of the stuff inside the cells. And so by using the powder, we're kind of bypassing that. Is it still better to decoct? Yeah, which is why we are going to put this into hot water and allow water to be one of the solvents that we're going to be using after all of this. But we're not going to really need to extract it completely because we are ingesting the whole powder. Does that make sense, Ren? Does that help? But it is, it's fine in powder form. It's not like the turmeric powder that needed to be changed in structure, right? We had to change the chemistry of the turmeric. We don't necessarily have to change the chemistry of the ashwagandha. We just need to ensure its extraction. And we can ensure its extraction by either decocting it in a larger particle size or decreasing the size of the particle and ingesting the whole thing. And that is one of the ways that you'll often see a traditional way of using turmeric is as the powder mixed into milk before evening, often a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of rose water, knock that back like that. And you're ingesting it, but you've got it in that milk, which again, the milk is a solvent that is an emulsion of fat and water together, right? So we like that. Marcus, in Puerto Rico, coconut oil is always liquid once you take it home from the air-conditioned supermarket. Yeah, Marcus, here in Southern California, it's we have like 2 seasons. We have solid coconut oil season and we have liquid coconut oil season. Those are the 2 seasons. Yes. And so there are celebrations when the seasons change. Ren, I know, just wasted all the fresh turmeric and the fire cider I just put together. No, you didn't, Ren, because go back. I don't think that you were in one of the last classes that I had. Go back and do the fire cider chutney class. That's where that's the reason why you put the turmeric into your fire cider, is so that you can use the mark left over to make the chutney. A couple of weeks ago, go watch it, because water and vinegar also extracts other important medicinal constituents. Absolutely it does. It's just not going to extract the non-polar ones. Yeah. Rosetta, la la la. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to take one of the jars here and fill it up about halfway with the turmeric paste, and then add in whatever other powders you want to, considering how strong the flavors are going to be, right? You've got cinnamon and ginger here, which are going to be significantly more flavorful than the burdock, but you do you. If you want to add in some of the coconut milk powder in there, you absolutely can. You can also just make it more the concentrated, those constituents, and add it to a milk powder later, or maybe you want to add it to water, or maybe you would just want to keep it more savory, so you would do turmeric and ginger and burdock maybe, but without the cinnamon. Cinnamon can be savory, actually. I don't know what I'm talking about. But that could be something that is more kind of spicy and savory, spicy, but could go either way into foods or into sweets, right? However you want to do it, this is a formula that is infinitely variable, and you can just make your own. Do you have any questions about any of this? No? All righty. We took all of the, here. We had graduation for my apprentices yesterday.
I saw that on Instagram. How many did you have?
We had 22 in the first year, and then we have second years graduating on December 1st.
So it's like a year-long program or a 2-year program?
It's a year-long program with an option for a second year that does kind of different stuff. Yeah. Would you grab that red thingy?
When does the program start? Does it start in January?
January.
Oh, okay.
January, but it's full. It fills.
When it's what?
It fills very quickly.
It fills
It's full.
quick.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I bet it was amazing.
Yeah.
We have all those people that want to go at it. It smells really good. It reminds me.
There you
It
go.
almost smells like pretzel, like when you go and it's like fresh baked pretzel.
Wetzel's pretzel.
Wetzel's
Yes,
I remember
yes,
Wetzel's
absolutely yes. Yeah,
That'd be nice if they were making their pretzels out of
pretzel.
with turmeric. That's why Wetzel's pretzels taste like that. It's because of the turmeric in there. All right. So
if you
set that
have-
there for those folks. I'll stay here with you folks if you have any questions. I'm sorry, say that again?
So if you have like a tea with
Mhm.
turmeric in it, it's not really that effective.
It's not really that effective.
Because
Yeah,
sometimes they have that, like the tea bags and it says turmeric. Like,
totally. Absolutely
okay,
they
it's
do.
not
Yeah.
really like the best way
Yeah.
to do it.
So many teas don't make
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
no, it's a nice idea.
I know.
The label, it looks really good. And to a certain extent, the people who are buying the teas would expect that. If they're buying a tea that is anti-inflammatory, a lot of people are going to think, that it should have turmeric in it because that's the anti-inflammatory herb, right? So how can you make an anti-inflammatory tea without turmeric in there? And so sometimes the tea companies are just going, fine, you're going to ask about the turmeric. You're going to call customer service and say, excuse me, where's the turmeric in there? So we'll just put it in there. Or they may not know about or care about solubility of constituents, right? So you see that a lot. The more you know about it, the more you'll kind of look at things like that. Julie, boop, 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 turmeric tea. Yay. Okay, turmeric heart. All right, any other questions y'all have? If not, I'm gonna let you folks go so you can go run and get some fats and get some, Marcus, that would be great. Yeah, contact me. Yeah, let's talk about it. Ren, it was so good to see your name pop up. I really love this. I just really wish that this could be like Zoom where I could see your faces. It would be so awesome to see your faces. I like your names. I see your names and your names make me really happy. But faces would be good. Anyway, I love you all. Mwah. Even if I can't see your faces, I love you. And I will see you next week. I will have another recipe for us to go over. All right, have a good week. Okay, bye-bye.